What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Late Night Show with Dr. Kojo. I am your host, Kojo Sarfo, checking in from sunny Los Angeles, California. It's been a great day so far, somewhat productive, so I'll take it. And we have a very, very interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about bouncing back from a narcissistic relationship. So before I get into it, I want to know who all is here. So go ahead in the comment section, let me know your name, let me know where you're from, and let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get. Let me look through the comments. Of course, this is my comment that I put up, that you all can see and learn a little bit about me. Rosie. Oh, Rosie from YouTube says so excited. What's up, Rosie? How you doing? Kendra, what's up? Kendra's a moderator. Kendra, what's good? What's good? Janessa from New Jersey. We got Haley from Mississippi. Matt, what's good? What's good? How you doing? We got Artavia from Orlando. Artavia is an OG as well. We got Candy from St. Louis. What's going on? We got Kiana from Alabama. Kiana, what's going on? Matt, what's going on? What's up? What's up? What's up? Susie from Facebook. What's up, Susie? How you doing? Elizabeth from Washington State. Elena from Texas. North Carolina in the house. Carrie from Canada. Stephanie, I appreciate you. Matt, I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you so much. Roll Tide. Nikki, I like you already. You said a couple of buzzwords that I'm gonna approve, of course. Ghana from DC, okay. Columbia, Pennsylvania, Nashville, tighten up. All right, so let's get into it, right? So tips on how to bounce back from a narcissistic relationship, right? And you could use this for not only like relationships with like an intimate relationship, right, but also just even friendships or situations where maybe, let's say, your parent had they were a narcissist or they had narcissistic traits, right? Keep in mind that all of us have narcissistic traits and tendencies, right? All of us, all 500 people watching live now, everybody who watches after the fact, even me, we all have these narcissistic tendencies and traits, right? And the way that we get over them, or the way that we improve, is by being self-aware and knowing that, okay, I got to get a little bit better here and there. But sometimes we don't take that step unless somebody, puts boundaries in place, and then we have to learn how to respect their boundaries. And we're going to talk about boundaries a little bit, so we're going to get into it. And let me see, someone said something about they were ghosted 3 months ago. So Bethany said that their partner got ghosted them 3 hours ago. Well, after 3 hours, can we call it the ghost for real? Ghosting, or what? You never know, right? You never know. I'm not from Alabama, Justin, but I went to school at can't talk. I went to school at West Alabama, and I used to go to Tuscaloosa for football games and tailgating, and I'll be there next month to talk about suicide prevention. So I got a lot of love for Alabama. Yep. Claire, Claire Huxtable, I appreciate that. You're making me blush, but I'm not light skinned, so you really can't see it on me. But all right, so the first tip on how to recover from a narcissistic relationship, right? What's the first thing? I mean, if you ask me, right, what's the first thing that you should do after you're coming out of a narcissistic situation? This is the very, very first thing that y'all should do. Here, I'm going to drop it in the chat. Take a break and prioritize you. All right, I want you to take a break and prioritize you. And this is important because if you got out of let's say you got out of a narcissistic relationship where the person was gaslighting you, you weren't able to have a say, you just felt like you weren't respected in that situation, the tendency to meet somebody else and meet somebody who was doing like the bare minimum, and that bare minimum like overwhelms you in a good way, where you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best. If you come from a situation where you're super hurt, right, and then you go with somebody else and they treat you like a regular human being, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, this person loves me so much. But maybe that person might not love you, but they're just treating you how you should have always been treated, right? So after, anytime you get out of a narcissistic situation, whether you left, your parents who, maybe weren't supporting you, or, you left a spouse, maybe you were divorced, or whatever the case was, it's important to take a break and prioritize you. So whether the break is 6 months, a year, 2 years, you have to take a break and figure out, what do I need for myself, right? And I see what Leilani is saying, that yourself. Leilani, what's going on? Yeah, it's important to date yourself, but more importantly, it's important to know how to be by yourself, right? And this is something that I think all of us struggle with in some capacity. And even me, like I like being by myself. I like having my space. But like after I get out of a situation, if I'm dating somebody, then the tendency for me to like feel like I have to be up under another girl is high because I just got out of a situation where I had a girlfriend, right? So it's normal to want to be around people, right? Because we're social beings, but we need to know how to be by ourselves, right? And I see Christina said they finally made it to live. Christina, what's up? Christina, we're live right now. So you made it to the live and it's actually live, but I want you all to know that it's important to take a break and prioritize yourself. And a lot of times, if you're a person who, let's say you're the go-to person in your life, right? If you're the go-to person in your life, you're the person that people come to with their problems, right? You're the therapist of the friend group. You're the mom of the friend group or the dad of the friend group. And people are always looking to you for things, right? And if you were in a relationship where you were just drained and you were gassed out, it's hard to sometimes just sit there and say, all right, what do I need for myself? Because you spend so much time trying to figure out what the other person needs, what the people in your life need, right? So taking a break and saying, all right, I just have to figure out what I need to do for myself is going to feel selfish, right? But sometimes you have to be selfish to be selfless, right? So when you start to do for yourself, you may see people say things like, oh, this person's selfish. You don't care about, other people, or, you've switched up, right? And we're supposed to change as, human beings. We're not supposed to be the same thing over and over, right? But you've got to take some time and just relax and do you for a little bit. It doesn't matter how long it is, but you have to take some time and do you. So Artavia says, what are some basic characteristics of a narcissist? Are there different types? All right, so I think we definitely should have a live where we talk about what narcissism is and what some narcissistic traits are, right? We probably should have done that before we did this live, but I'm trying to think of a simple way to explain narcissism, right? So somebody, let's say you're talking to somebody who is constantly making you feel less than, right? They're gaslighting you. The person doesn't respect your boundaries. You feel like there's a lack of empathy there. And at the same time, a narcissist can have these traits and tendencies, but people often forget that like a narcissist is like, these people are charming. Like you want, like they're the life of the party. And that's how you get sucked into the situation, right? Because when you start to date this person, you didn't know that they were like this, but this is somebody who everybody loves, right? Like you can't, well, you can, but it's not often that you run into somebody and you're like, oh, that person's like a clear narcissist, right? Normally, like they're gonna charm you and they're gonna be like, they're gonna be somebody that you want to be around, right? A big personality, and before you know it, you're like, oh, I just love being around this person. I just love being around this person, and after you spend so much time with them, by the time you've caught feelings, that's sometimes when you're like, dang, I don't want to be in this situation, but when your head is telling you one thing and your heart is telling you something else, that's a very, very difficult conflict. So I don't think people should judge themselves when you end up in those situations, because like if you're dating, right? Think about it. Dating is two people coming together who never knew each other in the beginning, and you have the goal of maybe wanting to spend the rest of your life with this person. You had no idea who this person was, right? And by the time you've caught feelings, like your heart is invested, so it's pretty difficult at that point to sometimes take a step back and be like, like, is this something that is right for me? And Lisa says, I got out of that mess, thank you Jesus. So that's the reaction that a lot of people have after they get out of a situation, because getting out is, I would probably say getting out of the situation is one of the harder things that you may do in your life, right? Because it is hard. And plus, more times than not, this is somebody that you really care about. It's somebody that you've called, like, either like your husband, your wife, or your spouse. Like, this is somebody that has been in your life, and your lives are like meshed together. And all of a sudden, you realize what your self-worth is, and you're like, all right, I can't stay in this type of thing. So I have to, like, the pain is ahead of me. I have to go through it some way, somehow, right? And Ariel says, so hard. It's difficult, Ariel. So that's why you can't judge yourself when you are in these situations, And growing up, I used to watch those Lifetime movies where you see the girl with the toxic or abusive guy, and you're like, oh, well, why won't you leave? And as I got older, I know exactly why some people won't leave, right? And Renee says, what if it's a family member? Renee, yeah, so we're talking about relationships, but even if it's a family member, I always tell people to spend a little bit less time with that family member if they're like toxic to you. You don't have to cut them out completely, but spend a little bit less time with them. And Leah says, is the hardest thing ever. It's quite difficult. Oh, that's my security system. All right, so the second thing to do after getting out of a narcissistic relationship, let me read April's comment first. Took me 3 years to get away. I left 3 to 4 times. Eventually it stuck. So April, congratulations on, being able to progress. But, a lot of people don't understand that. It takes a lot out of you to get to the point where you have even the courage to think about leaving. Because before you leave, you have to think about it. And then you picture your life like, if I left, how would life be? Like, can I really, like live without this person? And you can, but you're telling yourself like, I need this person to like function, and when it gets to that point, it's easy for somebody to just play you like is it like a yo-yo? What's that little toy we used to have back in the day? The yo-yo, or so that's why it can be pretty difficult to recover. Someone says, I saw a very awesome video today explaining to go no contact 110% with your abuser or narcissistic person, and anyone who may have contact with them to allow yourself to heal completely. That's one way to do it, right? It's pretty difficult to heal in the same environment that you got sick in, so you do have to change your environment for sure. That's a non-negotiable. All right, so the second one, they play on your codependency. Yes, I've been talking a lot about codependent relationships. Is it Ariane or Ariane? Let me know if I mispronounced that. I do apologize. And John says, oh, before I read the second tip, let me read John's comment. John says, I haven't contacted my parents because of their behavior for 7 years. Put yourself first. So John, thank you for saying this. And I think that it's okay even if it's your parents, if they are the people who make you feel less than, and they're toxic to you. Sometimes I've seen people do this type of thing, and I completely understand. I'm very close to my parents, but at the same time, when people have to set boundaries with the parents, and sometimes it ends up with them losing that relationship with their parents, is very difficult. And sometimes that's the cost of boundaries. And it's very, very difficult when the people that brought you into this world are not in your life anymore, and they're still alive, right? Because you have to grieve like people who are still living, which is a different type of grief, right? All right, so the second tip on things to do after living in a narcissistic relationship, you have to know what boundaries look like for you, right? And this is why the first point is so important, because if you take a break, you can see things clearer, right? And all of us who are right now watching live, and the people who are watching after the fact, right? If you've ever been in a relationship, right, and it hasn't worked out, you'll know that it's easier to see what went wrong when you're out of the relationship as opposed to when you're in it, right? Because when you're in it, you can't really see, like your vision is clouded, but when you're out of it and you're sitting back and you're trying to analyze and see, dang, where did I go wrong? Sometimes you can like see with like a crystal clear, perspective, right? So you have to know what boundaries look like for you. This is very, very, very important, right? Because the next time you get into a relationship and you meet somebody who was, everything seems to be going well at that time, and the person, may say, hey, I need you to do this, or can you do this or that? And you don't feel like you want to do it, but you're like, I think I should, to make them happy. I mean, you might do that thing for them one time, but what you're setting up is you're setting up a system of, hey, I don't feel like doing certain things, but because my partner asked me to do it, I'm going to do it, even though it doesn't agree with like who I am as a person, right? A good example is we talked a lot about polyamory here on this channel, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with polyamory, and I'm very excited that I've been learning more about it, and I want to know more of you all's feedback when it comes to polyamory and alternative styles of relationships. But if you're with somebody and they say, hey, I think we should open up the relationship, and you know that you would never ever ever do that, right? If you agree to open up that relationship, what you have done is you have betrayed yourself, right? And when you betray yourself within a relationship, that's the beginning of you starting to feel a little bit worse about yourself as time goes on, you know, and that's how you get stuck, you know, and that's why it's good to take a break, because when you're taking a break and you zoom out, you can see where you got stuck at, right? And because things progress so fast in a relationship, especially when you like the person, you're like, how in the world did I get to this point where I have no self-esteem, I have no courage to leave? I know that I could, you know, get somebody who's better for me, but you know, for some reason, I don't have that mindset that allows me to think that, okay, I deserve better. Because sometimes after you've been in a bad situation for so long, you might start to tell yourself, right? Like, hey, I don't think I deserve somebody better than this, you know. And once the negative voices take over, it's the worst, right? So that's why it's so important to figure out what are the boundaries look like for you. What don't you like doing, right? So if you don't like doing something, I don't care if it's you know, your favorite Hollywood person who wants to come and date you, or your crush you've been trying to get with since high school, right? If you know that you won't do a certain thing, it doesn't matter who that person is, right? You know, you won't do it because we just don't do those things here, right? We just don't do those things, you know? John says, for me, boundaries are something I put in place to keep my heart safe, whether it is asking someone to stop teasing a certain way or putting a boundary that I will not be around if a certain behavior doesn't change. John, I completely agree. Like, it's important to like take care of your heart, right? Because as we live life, like, it's not a matter of like if we will experience trauma. It's like when, like a bad day is coming for all of us, but a good day is also coming for all of us, right? Like, we can't control these things, but it is important to, you know, to guard your heart from unnecessary trauma, right? Because like I said, trauma will come regardless. Like, life is just traumatic and then it becomes amazing and it goes back to being sad and it's wonderful once again. That's just the cyclical nature of how things are, right? So if you can prevent yourself from unnecessary trauma, then you're putting yourself in a really, really good position, right? What if they don't respect boundaries, but they're not super narcissistic? Ooh, this is a good question right here, Kinsey. This is a good question right here. I gotta give you a love of the show for this. So if you ask me, Kinsey, so they don't respect boundaries, but they're not super narcissistic. So first of all, we have to define what does super narcissistic mean, right? You know, like, is there like a regular narcissistic or like a kind of narcissistic and like a very narcissistic? You know, like I said, everybody has traits, you know, that, you know, are narcissistic traits and tendencies. But here's how I would answer this question. Anybody who doesn't respect boundaries in my life is gone. Like, I don't have any tolerance for anything. Like, if the person doesn't respect boundaries, they're completely gone. Because I can't wait around and allow that person to like chip away at my self-esteem, or before you know it, I'm doing things that I don't want to do, but I'm doing it because I feel like I have to please, you know, that person. And especially if you have people pleasing tendencies, right? And I'm just speaking for myself. You know, maybe it's an ADHD thing, and you know, me having ADHD, that's how I am. But when you have people pleasing tendencies, you want to show your value to other people. So you want to let people know, hey, I'm helpful. Like, I can help out. Like I'm somebody who brings value to the world and to other people. You know, so when you're like that, like somebody like me, I don't allow any form of disrespect. I'm gone. Like, I'm gone. Like, any form of disrespect, I don't tolerate any disrespect at all, none whatsoever. So, Kenzie, if I don't tolerate disrespect, I don't think you should tolerate disrespect as well. And it doesn't mean that you have to cut out that person from your life, but I do think that you should address it and say, hey, you know, like, I don't like when you do this type of thing, you know, and you're not respecting my boundaries. So, you know, if this thing continues, like, I'm gonna have to spend less time with you, or you know, you may not see me around for real, because this is important to me. And like, I've had to tell you over and over, you know, if you have to tell somebody, if you have to tell an adult over and over something, and they're not listening to you, right? So that type of person, I wouldn't. You don't have to cut them off, but I wouldn't be spending, you know, weekends with them on Saturday nights, having them over at the house. No, because you know, I have to protect, you know, my mental and my heart, right? Tony says, I used to like you until I see Boomer Sooner. Hey, love you too, Tony. I appreciate you, my guy. But Alabama is better than Oklahoma. But you know, I appreciate you being around here. Ooh. Sharika said, this is a good question right here. Mickey Ficky. This is a good question. Co-parenting with a narcissist. What are some boundaries that people should have when co-parenting, and you have to you have to have contact with them? So Sharika said, this is personal for you, right? So if I were you, I would take a pen. I don't know why this thing doesn't have anything in here, but I'll take a pen, right? And write down. So this is homework for Sharisa, but I think all of us can benefit from it. I might even, no, not I might, I could benefit from this as well. So Sharisa, literally write down all the things that make you feel bad when you talk to, your the other parent, right? Everything that makes you feel bad, write that down on a sheet of paper. Like, look, I'll prefer that you write it than you type it on your phone, because we spend so much time on our phones. Write down everything that makes you feel bad when you communicate with this person, and then write down what happens that makes those things happen, right? So if you feel bad every time they call you out of your name, then write down what happens before that. Do y'all get into an argument before, and then the person starts to call you your name? But then it's like we're going to reverse engineer it and figure out where the behaviors are coming from, right? And then when you can pinpoint, oh, anytime we talk about finances for our child, or how we're going to take care of a couple of issues, the other person is going to bring up this issue. Then you say, all right, next time we talk about finances for the child, because kids need to have food for school, money for clothes. You say, next time that we talk about finances, you're going to tell the other person, hey, if we're talking about finances and you do X, Y, and Z, I don't like that. That makes me feel bad. It makes me feel inadequate. So I cannot have you doing that type of thing for me, right? And if you're dealing with somebody who has either narcissistic traits or tendencies, or somebody who just wants to, make things hard for you, they may not respect your boundaries, right? But you can say, hey, I will contact you for the child because we have a child together. But anything outside of that, I'm not going to, you're not going to hear from me, because it's just not, something that I want to do for myself, right? And it's very difficult, and this might not answer your question, all the way, because I know it's not that simple, right? It's very complicated when it comes to co-parenting. But as you do for your child, which is important, you have to do for yourself as well, right? And also keep in mind that the person on the other end, they still need love, whether they're a narcissist, actually diagnosed, or whether they just have narcissistic traits and tendencies. They still need to feel love and appreciation. Maybe you're not going to give that to them because you have to protect yourself, but they still deserve love and respect, just in general, right? And good question though, really good question, Mickey Ficky. All right, so this is it's a real question, so I don't want to gloss over it. Man, I've had situations like this before, with in practice. I would say if somebody threatens to, unalive, if you leave, it's a very difficult position. And for the first thing I want to say is it's not your fault. Nobody should have to have that responsibility or that burden on their shoulders. Dang, I want to leave, but if I leave, I'm not sure if they're gonna, be around anymore, right? So I think it's important to figure out how to love that person from a distance and let them know that, hey, when I stay here, it hurts me, I can't be here in this capacity for you, but I care for you and I appreciate you, but I can't continue to betray myself by putting myself in these positions where I'm going to get hurt. So it's the ironic thing with this is that at some point, if you break free and you do for yourself, you will leave, right? And at that point, when you leave, what will the other person do? Are they gonna, harm themselves, or, and of course, if there's a situation where you feel like somebody is in imminent danger and, think they might hurt themselves or hurt anybody else, what we do is we call 911 ASAP. We call 911, get emergent help, get police to the house, get, professional mental health services, right? So if it's to that point where we feel like, all right, we really have to get some help in here, we have to, strike fast, because even if we don't want to be with somebody and, and we want to, for our own mental health, we have to go away. If somebody's so struggling and, they're going to hurt themselves, we should always, do the right thing, try and get professional help for them as soon as possible. But those people need love too, and they may have a fear of abandonment. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't want to diagnose such a person. But there's two people in the situation, you and the other person, and both people need to feel respected, right? So, dang, that's a tough question, but it's a real question. It's a real question. So thank you so much for asking me that question. It's a very real question. And then my third tip for what you should do after leaving a narcissistic situation. And this might be a hard one, but before I put it up there, let me say, yeah, Kendra, you can have a wellness check as well. But if there's like an imminent threat, like if somebody's gonna hurt themselves, and like you have to, like if it's that grave, I always tell people to, the fastest way to get people to the house is to call 911. Say, hey, like I'm concerned, but because when you think about self-harm and impulsive behavior, sometimes, in my head, maybe I'm coming from a professional perspective, but I always like to think that we don't have as much time as we think we have, right? And Chris, I appreciate you. And Chris, people are asking some really good questions. I love it when people ask a question and I don't immediately know the answer. Like I get like a weird high from that. I'm like, ooh, I gotta think about this. But the third tip is forgiving them for you, right? And this is kind of weird, right? But after you leave a narcissistic, situation or relationship, I think forgiveness is important, right? And let me explain, because when people hear forgiveness, sometimes people will say, how can I forgive this person who did this to me, who may have assaulted me in some form or shape, or who abused me? Why should I forgive that type of person, right? They don't deserve the forgiveness. And I like to say that forgiveness is not for them. It's more so for you, because somebody can hurt you and you can hold on to it for months and weeks and years. And that person who hurt you, like they're living their life. They're at Disney, or they're just living their life. They're not concerned about what they did to offend you or hurt you. But you're sitting there with the pain, and you're just sitting there every single day or every week, and you're trying to process the pain that they put you through. So forgiving them is really liberation. It's self-liberation. You no longer have to, be upset about. I mean, you can still be upset with the situation, right? But you've forgiven them. You've chosen to say, hey, I forgive this person for whatever they've done. And, it's difficult because I'm still hurt. Forgiving somebody doesn't mean that you can't be hurt about the situation, because we're human beings, and it's unhuman to be like I should just forgive them. Like that's not the first thought, but when you forgive somebody and you've made peace with the situation, the best, possible way that you could in that point in time, it allows you to move forward, or at least start to begin to pick up the pieces and, prepare for the life ahead. Because, whatever happened in the past, like, I'm sorry, all of us have had trauma in the past, and whatever happened in the past is not our fault, right? So I'm very sorry for the things that have happened to all of us collectively, but it is our responsibility in the future to, take care of ourselves. And as we take care of ourselves, we have to do a lot of different things, including putting up boundaries, forgiving others for yourself if you can get there, and taking some time to figure out, okay, what went wrong? How did I end up in this situation? What things did I not work on? Or maybe was it childhood trauma that I didn't take care of? And then somebody came along and somebody was just nice to me. Someone was just nice to me, and then I decided that, okay, I'm going to spend more time with them, and then you got sucked in, right? So forgiving them, but also even forgiving yourself, right? Forgiving yourself for, being in that situation, because if you don't forgive yourself, you might think that, hey, I can't trust myself with big time decisions, because anytime it's time to pick, a partner, I feel like I'm going to screw up. So I'm just going to stay out of relationships, or I'm not going to be close to people because I feel like I can't trust myself, right? So forgiveness is tough, right? And this is something that, I say it, I don't just say it to be like, go forgive whoever hurt you, but like I think about this too, in terms of people who have like hurt me, and I'm like, regardless of however good these lives go, I have to, like, once the life is over, I have to live my life and deal with my own, BS, my own trauma, and I have to make sure that I forgive as well, and also keep in mind that in somebody else's story, you could be the villain too. So maybe sometimes people have to forgive you. I don't know how people see me or how people see us, right? So forgiveness is important if you can get there, but I wouldn't rush to, if you struggle to understand that concept, don't blame yourself, right? Like take your time, because that's a very tricky one. It's a very tricky one, Narcs attract empaths. They feed off of us. Less people pleasing will go a long way. I completely agree. Less people pleasing just in general is good. Whenever you like a real quick dating tip I have for y'all. One of the the most fundamental dating tips is, if you're dating somebody and you feel like you have to convince them of something, then it's time to go. Honestly, like if I have to convince somebody, like, oh, I'm doing all these things, or then then that person doesn't see the beauty within you, right? Or they don't see like the most important things about you, which is not what you have or what you do, but like you as a human being. Like, what type of person are you? Are you a good, brother? Are you a good son? Are you a good father? If you have kids, like what type of person are you? Let me go through some of these comments here. Becca says, forgiving yourself is difficult. There's doubt in your intuition after experience with a narcissist. Yeah, Becca, that's what I was saying earlier. It's really difficult to forgive yourself. And for me personally, if like in my personal experience, I struggle more with forgiving myself than other people, because sometimes, like, if you're very critical of yourself, you're like, why in the world did I end up in that situation? And then you start to, like, sometimes you can even gaslight yourself and be like, am I really like am I really like good at judging character? And none of us, to be honest, none of us are really good at judging character in the beginning. I mean, we all have intuition, things like that, but the way to know, like, if somebody's compatible with you or not, is to really like see them for who they are. Don't look at potential. Don't look at, just see them for who they are in the moment, and don't try and make that person somebody that you want them to be. Just let them be who they are. And as things are revealed to you, don't try and fight reality, and say, oh no, this person, no, take it for what it is. And that can save us a lot of grief and pain. Notice, how do I trust my decisions again? By going slow. Like, going slow helps us with a lot of things. It helps us with impulsive decision making. It helps us regain trust in ourselves again, and it gives you time to forgive yourself, and not be too critical of who you are as a person. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Create them and do not budge on them. Budging will make. I agree. I agree. So, Jacqueline, let's say you got a situation where you finally were able to break free from this relationship, and this is not just women breaking from narcissistic men. Like, I have so many guys who DM me saying, thank you so much for posting this content. I just got a relationship with this girl, and I was struggling, and it's a beautiful thing for us to be able to talk about male mental health. But this is for anybody, right? But once you get out of these situations, you have to understand that, hey, I got into it for a reason, and I don't want to repeat this. So, like, I have to kind of do some pattern recognition and figure out what was my role in this, right? Like, what part did I play and allow myself to get in this situation? And once you figure out like how you got there, don't judge yourself, but just say, hey, all right, I did the best I could with what I knew, right? Sometimes you have to forgive the old version of yourself that had to like be a certain way to like allow you to survive, if that makes sense, you know. John says, time, it will take you time, but eventually you'll bounce back. It took me years. So, John, this is why I like this live show, because it's like nobody here is like, I mean, not to say everybody here is telling the truth, right? But I feel like we're being authentic and transparent, because that last part right there is real. Sometimes it takes years to bounce back from a situation, right? So if you just came out of a situation where you feel like you were being gaslit and you feel like, you were able to speak up for yourself, it could take you years, right? And that's not going to be fun to, to hear, especially if you just pop up on the live and you're like, all right, well, what do I do? And I'm telling you, it might take years. But keep in mind that what the work that we're doing is supposed to set us up for the rest of our lives. Like, we don't have to do it all in one day or 1 week or 1 month. But the direction is more important than speed. And I tell myself that all the time, because I just like to go fast. I like to go fast. Let me get some more. Melissa says, Rosie, I appreciate you a lot. Thank you so much. And Melissa says, I'm extremely damaged from narcissists. I don't think I'll ever bounce back from this. I have something to say about that. But before that, what's my phone looking like? Mickey Ficky. All right, can somebody drop in the magic word? So, I got my water bottle here. So somebody drop the magic word. But let me talk about Melissa's comment here real quick. So the last part of this phrase, I don't like it, to be honest, but I'm not judging you. But let me show you what could be better, right? So when you say I am extremely damaged from narcissists, I can You know, I could see how that could be true. But the last part where it says, I don't think I will ever bounce back from this. Like, first of all, thank you for saying the truth and what's in your mind. But that last part is so important, because if you have that mindset of, I don't think I will ever bounce back from this, Melissa, keep in mind that you're going to be living your life, right? And you may meet somebody else and you're like, oh, I think I might could spend the rest of my life with this person, right? But if you enter that relationship with this mentality of, I don't think I'll ever bounce back from this, right? Then you're not going into that relationship with you at your most optimal self, right? Like if you're doing the basics, right? The mental health basics, get enough sleep, getting a little bit of exercise, and also putting healthy foods in our bodies, right? And we're surrounding ourselves with people that respect us and value us. If you're doing all those things and you're working on yourself, you don't have to be all the way there, but once your mentality switches, then things start to change for you, and then as you enter situations where you might be intimate with somebody, it becomes a little bit easier, right? And you start to believe. You have to believe before you can be in a certain situation. So if you can just change that last sentence from, I don't think I will ever bounce back from this, to at this time, I don't feel like I could bounce back from this, but I know that I will make progress. Something along those lines would be a little bit better, because that way you're giving yourself some room to get better. Because with this statement at the end, you're not giving yourself any space to get better, right? But like, I'm here to let you know that, like, it's gonna take time. Like John said earlier, like, it takes time for these things to get a little bit better, and then sometimes, like, when we don't get things fast enough, we start to question, like, nothing is going right for me. And maybe good things are happening, but maybe we're forgetting to count up the small wins, right? And before you know it, you neglect all the small wins, and you're like, oh, nothing's happening for me. But if you can just reframe, like if you go to a therapist and tell a therapist this, a good therapist would work on that last sentence, and they will do something that we call cognitive reframing, which just means changing the way you think, right? We don't have to use those big words, but they're just going to help you adjust, your mindset to where you're like, all right, I think I'll be all right. It'll take me a little bit of time, but I think I'll be all right. And eventually it becomes, I know I'm going to be okay. I just need a little bit of time, but I know I'm going to be okay. So I'm happy I caught this comment right here, because sometimes the comments come in so fast, but I'm happy I caught this comment, Melissa. And like, I hope that you come back on the next live or later on sometime. And then, like, when you type another statement, like, hopefully we're starting to move in the right direction. All right. Oh, I got to talk and I forgot. All right. Cheers, y'all. My fault. Cheers. 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 This is the water break. This is the time for us to go ahead and drink water, or whatever beverage you prefer. But I like to drink water here, because I'll be forgetting to drink water. So let's go ahead and get the water break in. Cheers. Ooh. Look at me. I'm trying to put the wrong cap on. Mickey Vicky. Water break is important, because I try and drink like 75% to 100% of one of these a day. And as you can tell, I haven't drunk a lot, so you forget to drink water every now and then. All right, let me get one more comment in real quick. Some high quality. Yeah, I mean, it's just regular water, but yeah, it's, I guess, some high quality H2O. Yay! Ariane, or Ariane, I appreciate you. And once again, I appreciate everybody who leaves comments and messages and things like that. I don't check messages as often because they just come so fast. And I used to check them a lot, but I will be going in to check messages every now and then. Sarah, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And let me get Elizabeth's question before I got it out. I love that you post so much about ADHD, narcissistic traits. I think you meant to say what are some best practices to grow together instead of being apart? Ooh, so Elizabeth, are you talking about growing together with your partner? Is that what you meant? Because if that's what you meant, then I have a little bit. I got something to say about that. So let's say you're in a situation where you feel like the other person is either being toxic to you or just some narcissistic traits or tendencies. But either way, you don't feel respected, right? For whatever reason, you don't have to throw away the whole relationship, but you do have to put some boundaries in place, because if you continue to live life the way you're living it right now, and you just don't feel like you're being respected or loved, or if you don't feel that love in the way that you want to feel it, you're not gonna, it's not gonna work, right? Because that's like a need. It's not like a want. Like you need, like we need love, right? And we all experience love in different ways, but you're gonna need that type of love, right? So I think it's important to have that discussion, right? Or maybe some people call it like a come to Jesus meeting, but you have to sit down with your partner and say, hey, like, like as for me, Liz, like I want to be with you, but like, there's a couple of things that have to be changed in order for this thing to work. But like, I love you, I want to be with you, but when you do X, Y, and Z, those things make me feel like this. Like it's important to sometimes write things down so that way you can articulate yourself, because you might get to that meeting, you're talking to that person, and you're like, I forgot what I was gonna say. And after you're done, you're like, oh no. I wanted to say that, but like the time has already passed, right? So figuring out what you need is important, and then letting that person know and being like as explicit as possible, saying, hey, like I need these things, right? And when you say need's a big word. Need is very different from want, right? Like I like we need water, we need food. We would like a Ferrari or whatever, right? But we don't need no Ferrari. If somebody gives us a Ferrari, we're not going to say no, right? I never say no if somebody gave me a Ferrari. I'd be like, oh, thank you. But we need food, we need water, we need love, we need support from other people. So when you say I need, just know that whatever you follow up the statement with are things that are non-negotiables. And hopefully, as you articulate yourself, the other person can say, hey, well, I need these things from you as well. And then if y'all are able to work towards giving each other those things, then I think that's still a relationship worth, like working on. But I'm not a fan of people having one problem and being like, oh, I'm out. Because sometimes you could salvage a relationship, but sometimes it is time to like let the thing go. And I think only like we ourselves can answer that question for us. Elizabeth, let me make sure I answer that question correctly for Liz. Maybe she left it. Okay. Kendra, I appreciate you, and one more thing about ADHD, let me leave that up there. Like as I'm getting older, I'm learning more about the effect of ADHD on like me and my business and things like that. And I'm doing my best to post tips and bring awareness to it, because just the fact that people can have ADHD without feeling shame is super cool. Because like when I was in school, you couldn't have ADHD. You could, and even for me growing up in my house, I couldn't have ADHD. I could only have an A. My parents like, bring home an A. You can't have no ADHD. You can just have A. The DHD part, you got to throw that out. So now that we can have ADHD and not feel bad of ourselves, I think that's a beautiful thing. So all right, y'all. Okay, all right, my time is bad. All right, I do have to get out of here. I wanted to keep it at 30 minutes, but it's okay when I go over, because I just had stuff to say. So I appreciate you all for wanting to listen. And today's Thursday, so it's the last show of the week. But I might throw in some bonus episodes tomorrow and even throughout the weekend. Like when I go gaming, I'll just do it to where I'm playing some game, but I'll be answering questions so that way I can continue to stay connected with you all. So I do have to bounce out now, but I appreciate y'all and I love y'all, and I'll see y'all at the next stream. Peace. Take care. Yee.